Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you so much for coming. Are you excited to be here? Yeah! Such a beautiful space. So Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Kunja Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna everyone, so it's my great fortune to be with you. And it's our great fortune to be in this wonderful temple, Shri Shri Radha Govinda. And it's our great fortune to be in this wonderful new Bhakti Loft. The Bhakti Loft ki Jai. When Srila Prabhupada was once asked, why did you come to New York? Srila Prabhupada said, my godbrothers, they went to London. Unfortunately, they couldn't fulfill the mission. He said, I thought if I go somewhere, let me go. And if I fail, at least let me fail in a different place. That was Srila Prabhupada's humility. Krishna brought Srila Prabhupada to New York. Once Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture and he said, who knew that I would come to the feet of my spiritual master? Who knew that I would come to America? Who knew that all of you would come and be with me? Who knew that this Krishna consciousness movement would spread all over the world? Srila Prabhupada said, these are all Krishna's arrangements. We can't understand how things are going on. So New York plays such a big part of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental pastimes. It's here that Srila Prabhupada came. It's here that Srila Prabhupada began his mission. Here we are in the loft. And we remember Srila Prabhupada was also living in a loft in New York. Srila Prabhupada had come to Butler, Pennsylvania, and he realized he had to go to New York. And so Srila Prabhupada was living close to Dr. Mishra's apartment on 72nd Street. His apartment was so basic that there was no bathroom, there was no kitchen facility. So it's explained that every day in that New York winter, Srila Prabhupada would walk down to Dr. Mishra's apartment and there he would cook, there he would bathe. At one point in that apartment, room 306, Srila Prabhupada's things were stolen. His room was broken into. Prabhupada pretty much knew who it was. And Srila Prabhupada lost so much enthusiasm there. Srila Prabhupada himself said, after that occurrence, he went to the port, to the Scindia steamship's office, and he started inquiring, when is the next ship going back? Of course, Prabhupada, in his heart, he knew he couldn't go back. But he said he went to inquire. And then as Srila Prabhupada was in that situation, then Harvey Cohen came to him and said, I got another option for you if you want to move somewhere else. So Srila Prabhupada was open to the idea, and Harvey, he suggested the Bowery. And so Srila Prabhupada said, yes, I'll go to the Lower East Side. Maybe that's where I'll find a more receptive audience. Of course, others who found out that Srila Prabhupada was going down to the Bowery, they were aghast. They said, Srila Prabhupada, you can't. Swamiji, you can't go to the Bowery. That's the lowest of the low. That's the Skid Row. But Prabhupada there at the 94 Bowery, that 4-floor building, the loft at the top, Srila Prabhupada decided to move to that place. And he made that the place, the temple, the 94, the rat-ridden Bowery, where Srila Prabhupada had to walk over individuals who were in altered states of consciousness, lying in the lobby. That very, very degraded place. In that loft, Srila Prabhupada taught, he encouraged, he lectured, he sung and he changed the hearts of so many individuals. His Holiness Mukunda Maharaj explains how he came to the Bowery in that loft and saw Srila Prabhupada. And he was hearing Srila Prabhupada speak, and he recalls later on that, I don't know how much of the philosophy of what he was saying I understood, but the urgency in his tone made me think this person has something important to tell the world. So I better be patient and try to hear what it is. So Srila Prabhupada was in that loft, and here we are in another loft in New York. And I guess every time we walk into this space, we can also take a moment to just remember Srila Prabhupada, who began in a loft in the Bowery. These spaces that we create are extremely sacred. Someone may think, what's the big deal? It's just another room. But this is not just another room. It has an incredible significance. This room can do different things for different people. This room is a recreational space in the sense that it gives people a respite from the world. Out there is the madness of New York City. And when they come into this space, it's a different energy, it's a different mood, it carries a completely different aura. And therefore, this space provides people with a break from the material world. It's a recreational space from the madness of it all. But this space, along with that, is also an educational space. It's a space where people come, they sit and they listen. And what can happen from listening? So much can happen from listening, because from listening, our entire vision of life can change as we become educated in the eternal principles of Krishna consciousness. Then this education, this wisdom, this realization, this different lens, this darshan that we attain by hearing transcendental wisdom, it completely transforms the way we look and the way we see life. This place is also an experiential place. It's a place where people come and their heart is moved. They experience something in the depths of their consciousness that perhaps they had never experienced before. What really convinced me about Krishna consciousness was once I was in a program and a kirtan began, and I was extremely shy, extremely introverted. For me, spirituality was like silence, solitude, and stillness. And then I joined the Hare Krishna movement. And it definitely wasn't silent, it definitely wasn't still, and it definitely wasn't in solitude. But I remember in that one program, a kirtan began, and something just overtook me and I began dancing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dancing. And I remember in that moment I realized, if this can make an introverted, shy, self-conscious person like me lose all inhibition and start dancing, it must be spiritual. And so when people come into a space like this, they get a different experience. Their heart is moved in a different way. So it's an experiential place. And I guess we could say ultimately what this space is it's a transformational space. Because it's a space in which people will come and their life will be changed. Here we are sitting for our first program here. And as decades will come, and people will come in and out of this room to engage in the eternal practices of Krishna consciousness, they will leave not the same person. They will leave transformed. They will leave with something very, very special awakened within their heart. And they will leave with something beautiful to offer anyone else that they then come in contact with. And so yes, this is not just the opening of a room. It's a respite from the material world. It's an educational place. It's a experiential place. And ultimately, it's a transformational space. A lot can happen in a small space like this. 500 years ago in Sridham Mayapur, there was also a space like this, and it was known as Srivasangan. And in that small space, mystical things happened because sincere devotees came, and along with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while engaging in the Sankirtan movement, they began and they never stopped. It went on all night. And in that transcendental atmosphere of Srivas Angan, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said it became non-different from the Rasa Leela, the Rasa Stali, where Krishna performed his most intimate pastimes. And in that space of Srivas Angan, individuals were transformed. And the energy that was generated in Srivas Angan was so great that it couldn't be contained within those four walls, that then the doors had to break open and the Panchatattva had to run out onto the streets of Nadia and start sharing this beautiful holy name with everyone. That's the power of a small space, that what energy can be generated in here can have a global impact. In the next century, a small space like the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple, an unassuming corner of Vrindavan, in that space, the 6 Goswamis were all coming together to plan, to plot, to prepare for the spreading of Krishna consciousness all over the universe. And in that small space, they all gathered together and had Krishna Katha, had Krishna Kirtan. And there in that small space, that courtyard, which later on Srila Prabhupada would go to meditate on and visualize as he was preparing to come to America, in that small courtyard space, so much spiritual energy was generated. Centuries later, if you go to Navadvip, then on the island of Godrumadvip, there was the house of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Svananda Sukhada Kunj. And in that small courtyard of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home, is said that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would all meet for Sangha. That was a powerful Sangha group. And in that small space, that courtyard of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, that energy that was generated amongst these acharyas meant that the global vision of how Krishna consciousness could be spread all over the universe was generated in that space where they came together. And what can we say just down the road from here, not too far away, in 26 Second Avenue, where Srila Prabhupada opened that small storefront, then in that small space, so much energy was generated. His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu tells about how he decided one day to bring Srila Prabhupada a gift. So at 26 Second Avenue, he brought Prabhupada a gift, and the gift was he brought him a globe of the world. And he brought Prabhupada some markers. And he explains how Prabhupada would often sit in his rooms at 26 Second Avenue, and Prabhupada would spin the globe. And then he would say, and this person will go here, and this person will go here. And in those kirtans, in those lectures in 26 Second Avenue, Matchless Gifts, in that space, so much energy was generated that those individuals then went away from that space and started spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere. So we're in such a fortunate space here, that just like all of these different spaces were there, this space will also, by Krishna's mercy, by Srila Prabhupada's unlimited deep desire, act as a place from which so much spiritual energy is generated that then it will overflow into the city of New York, where Srila Prabhupada began the Krishna consciousness movement, and where there's so much more scope to meet so many more people and touch so many more hearts. And from this city, which Prabhupada said is the greatest city in the world. As a Londoner, it's hard to say that. Yes, from this city. It's not what we do in this city doesn't just affect this city. What we do in this city affects the whole of North America, and indeed whatever we do in this city affects the whole world, because it's such a hub of influence. And where there's a strong spiritual influence in this hub, then it will have a global impact and global ramification. So we're so fortunate also here at Radha Govinda Temple that we have this Bhakti school, because this Bhakti school is really the way by which individuals can become transformed in their life. Social science tells us that for transformation to take place within the heart of an individual, broadly speaking, 3 things are required: consistency, community, coaching. These are the 3 things. And a bit of quiet as well. Peace and quiet. Consistency. Consistently annoying. Okay, thank you. Consistency is the first thing that's required. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to exercise, but it's hard to also experience illness. It's hard to study, but it's also hard to fail. It's hard to work, but it's also hard to be jobless. It's hard to be disciplined, but the pain of regret is perhaps even harder. And so, through the Bhakti school, we give the opportunity for individuals to find that strength, to be consistent. Because where there's consistency, where there's that regular application and imbibing of Krishna consciousness in one's daily life, then we transform. And along with that consistency, where there's community, where individuals come together to really encourage each other, to really enthuse each other, to give each other confidence, to give each other faith, to come together to show what life can and should be. In that empowering community, so many beautiful things happen. And the Bhakti school is also a place where there can be coaching, because we all need feedback in our life. We all need someone who can show us things in our heart and in our mind that we need to identify in order to move on our journey forward. And so creating a place where we can find consistency, where we can find community, where we can find coaching, where we can find devotees who can help. This is the real purpose of actually having a temple. Srila Prabhupada, when he wrote up the purposes of ISKCON, then the very first purpose, and if you look at the preceding ones after, are all very, very much to do with education. Because education is what changes vision. We have a certain vision of life which is made up of our condition coming from previous lives, and we have a certain vision of life which is coming from our interaction as we grew up in this world. And often that vision, that conscious state is what defines our experience of life. But education is so powerful because connection with Shastra can actually overcome one's conditionings, overcome one's impressions of the interactions that they've received in this life. And connection with Shastra can actually shift one's paradigm in terms of how they approach life. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, so much of his endeavor was in education. And so, education is the heart of the Krishna consciousness movement. Yes, the chanting of the holy names is the ultimate place, but education goes very, very much alongside that. Because where that education is strong, where that education is substantial, then spiritual practices can take place in a very, very deep way, with purity and with the sincere intention. So we're so fortunate to be in this space. I wanted to request Hansarupa Prabhu, Smara Hari Prabhu, Pancharatna Prabhu, Mataji, if you could perhaps also speak some words, because I think as our seniors, as you who have seen Srila Prabhupada's movement grow here in New York and grow across the world over these decades, I think words of guidance and inspiration from you are so valuable for us. Could I request you to also share some words?
I'm not sure how we could follow on your elocution and articulation here, but it was nice for you to describe this loft in relation to Prabhupada's 94 Bowery Artist in Residence loft. And despite the challenges he had there, which are similar to challenges everywhere in Krishna consciousness, that this loft has come about due to the vision of His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. So first of all, we'd like to offer our respects to him and thank him in this regard. And like you said, education, vision, so these things have expanded. And so we'd like to continue this journey with this expanded education and increasing vision. And everyone here has an opportunity to contribute to that. This is not a closed community. We're open to the ideas how we can spread Krishna consciousness, God consciousness in New York City. So please feel yourselves part of the community. Always come. There'll be programs here regularly now, every Tuesday evening. So this is the new community center. And we're just looking forward to having all of you come on a regular basis. So thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for coming every night in the future.
Haribo, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
My name is Smara Haridas. I arrived here in New York only 2 days ago. The last time I was in the United States was 11 years previously. And it's not that I have come specifically for this loft open. This is coincidental. I started my career in Krishna consciousness a very long time ago, and I went to India before we had any temples. So there, by a lot of hard work, we established the first 4 temples. But now in India today, there are 485 custom-built ISKCON temples. So it just needs a beginning. It's like if you start any enterprise. At first, you're working much harder than the fruits of the enterprise, gives. And then after some time, your work is equal to what comes out. You're getting a fair return for your work. But at the later stages, you get an abundance of fruit from a tree, an abundance of results from your, just like in India, 485 temples. It's a huge brand name. There are 18 temples in the city of Delhi. 18 different temples, all custom built, each temple more beautiful, more astonishing, bigger than the previous one. It's an Hayagriva was Prabhupada's first Sanskrit editor of Bhagavad Gita. He was a professor of English language. That was his job. He worked in a university, and he used the expression, which I think is the most apt expression in the English language to describe the spreading of Krishna consciousness. He called it the Hare Krishna explosion. And explosive matter is where you have something in a very small space. It very suddenly takes up a huge, and this is why it's explosive. So, by dictates of circumstance, here we have a new beginning now of the temple under the auspices of Hansarupa Prabhu, and it's not an experiment. Originally, it was an experiment. When Srila Prabhupada wrote the very first letter to Kirtanananda in New Vrindavan, he said there we should have an experiment. It was very experimental. But it's no longer an experiment. It's tried and tested. And here, there can be huge results for New York City. It's just a question of everyone doing a little bit under the guidance of the management, the senior Prabhus like Hamsarupa Prabhu. It's a done deal. New York is going to be huge because Krishna consciousness is huge all over the world. Maharaj comes from London. It's huge in London. There are so many. We have members of parliament who are devotees. There are 6 members of parliament who are. They're in the government. They're devotees. They take so many issues. They get involved. There's just such an influence that Krishna consciousness has, that Srila Prabhupada has, and it's the same here. It's just waiting to happen, and just like the Battle of Kurukshetra. Prabhupada describes it was already done. Krishna simply gave the service and the
Credit.
to Arjun and it's already done. Krishna conscious. This will become a very Krishna conscious city with lots and lots of influence. And those of us who participate, we will take part in the credit. We will take part in the transfer. And this is simultaneously opening our hearts and resulting in our own inner understanding, inner enlightenment, and our own Krishna consciousness. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program. There's a wonderful, wonderful team. There's so many different devotees who have so many different attributes, so many different qualities, all working together as a team. This is wonderful, and it's going to be exceptional. Srila Prabhupada
Ki Jai!
Haribo.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to also add to Hansarupa Prabhu's appreciation of the Dhammakananda Maharaj. If you haven't seen it yet, then please do look up his 2019? Yes, 2019. In the midst of the winter of 2019, he's walking about, taking a little tour of the temple here and the surroundings and just envisioning. This could be like this. This could be like this. Hansarupa Prabhu has been here from the beginning of this building. And while you were talking, I was thinking about, you were talking about this as a transformational space, and the energy that transforms space. And I was thinking about how Sri Radha Govinda, by coming here, have not just transformed this building, but look around, they transformed the entire area of this place, which is, I don't know how many of you were here 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It was a very different atmosphere around 305 Skirmore. Now, Krishna, Radha Govinda have transformed their own space, but have transformed the entire area, and I especially am looking forward to how this particular space can become, as well as the space below, can begin to attract our neighbors and the people that have come to live around here, because I think they've done that for a reason. I think they've somehow been This area is transformed, the people have transformed, the mood has transformed, and now we're right in the middle of it. Let's take advantage of it and see what we can do to help Srila Prabhupada fulfill his purposes of ISKCON, which he drafted here in New York City, especially the first purpose, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, in order to correct the imbalance of values in life. And that you walk out the door and what you see an imbalance of values everywhere. To correct those imbalance of values and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So here we are. And like you said, this is the biggest. New York is so important for so many reasons, and one of them is its diversity. And I look around the room and see such a diversity here as well. I think here in Brooklyn especially, Brooklyn, Queens, I mean, Hazruba can testify, every corner of Queens, there's a different community. There's 850 languages spoken in the city of New York. Everyone has their little corner. So we are here in capital of the world, and we can have a great influence by coming together. This is a nice next step forward, and there's more to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So these were beautiful words. As Pancharatna Prabhu was speaking, the other morning I was in the temple room and he told me that now because of this setup with this glass here and this glass here, there's actually a room there in the hotel that if you book it, you can actually get Radha Govinda's darshan. We're still trying to figure out which number it is, right? These are all Krishna's pastimes. It's very interesting because in Jaipur, when Jai Singh had made the temple of Radha Govinda, he had strategically created the temple in such a way that from the room in his palace, when Radha Govinda would be giving darshan, just from his room in his palace, he would be able to actually have a clear view straight to the altar. So these are all the pastimes of the Lord. Radha Govinda is coming here, capturing the hearts. I'll tell you an interesting story actually. Once I was on Sankirtan in Paris. I was doing a marathon there. So I was holding a Gita in my hand. And someone came up to me and he said, "What's that?" I said, it's a Bhagavad Gita. He said, "Who's that?" And he pointed to Krishna. I said, "That's Krishna." And then he looked at me and said, "I can't get Krishna out of my mind." I'm like, "Wow, can you teach me how to do the same?" And so he introduced himself as Abdullah from a Muslim background. And so he said, "I can't get Krishna out of my mind." I said, "Why?" He said, "I was traveling in India and I went to like so many places. And I went to one temple and since that time, I just can't forget Krishna." So I said, "Wow, you only one temple?" He said, "Yeah, I only went to one temple and it just left such an impression on me." So I said, "Which temple is it? Maybe I know." He said, No, I don't think you'll know. It was kind of up out of the way temple. I said, "No, try me." He said, "It was in Rajasthan." I said, "Okay, which place?" He said, "Jaipur." I said, "Really? Which temple did you go to?" He said, "I don't think you know it. It's called the Temple of Govinda." And he said, "Ever since I went in that temple and I saw the way, the devotion and the way in which they worship Govinda, I just can't get Krishna out of my mind." And it's very interesting because Rupa Goswami writes that verse, "Smeram bhangi traya parichitam sachivishtir nadrishtim vamsi nyasta dara kishalayam ujvalam chandrakena govindakyam haritanum itikeshitirtho pakante ma prekshista stavayati sakhe bandhu sange stiranga." Rupa Goswami says, if you're at all interested in family, friendship, love and society, then don't go to the banks of the Yamuna, because there Govinda is standing, and he's standing in a threefold bending posture, and he's throwing sidelong glances, and if your eyes meet his eyes, then maybe, just maybe, you're going to forget everything. And I thought, wow, here's the proof, real life proof. So it's so beautiful. We've got this arrangement now where so many individuals, so many people can take darshan of the smiling face of Govinda, which really captures people's minds and their hearts. And I think I'll just end today just by saying something about His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, as was mentioned. I had the fortune to spend quite some time with Maharaj, and I have to say, in all my time with him, I never heard him talk about a project more than New York. I never saw him more excited about any project than New York. I never saw him work harder on anything he ever did than on New York. And what I saw is that wherever he went in the world, he was always talking about New York. And he was always trying to connect all of us, the whole world, with New York. And then I realized, my God, New York must be really important to him. And so I said to him, New York's really important to you. And he said, yes, because New York was important to Srila Prabhupada. And therefore, what is important to Srila Prabhupada is important to us. And then he looked at me and he said, everyone has a responsibility in New York, even if you're from London. He said, everyone has a responsibility because this is an epicenter. So I remember he had become very sick and he had gone to Vrindavan to spend his final days, and I had gone there. And then I had left. I'd come back to the London to do the marathon, and then I went back when I found his health was going down. So I arrived back in Vrindavan in February, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before he passed away. And I came into his apartment, so I had not seen him physically for about 4 months. I came into the apartment, and as soon as I opened the door, I looked across and his door was open and he was lying. And even from a distance, I could see how emaciated his body had become. So it was almost a very shocking sight. So I walked into the room and I went immediately and I paid my obeisances. So he couldn't, by that time, he couldn't speak much. So I came to the edge of the bed and I said, Maharaj, I'm sorry I came so late. It's been a busy few months doing things. He looked at me and said, it's going to be a busy few years. It's going to be a busy lifetime. We have lots to do for Srila Prabhupada. And then we kind of literally for 2 or 3 minutes we spoke, and then immediately he said to me, get your laptop. So then I got my laptop, and there in that condition, he just began writing his ideas for New York. He said, I'll speak and you write down. And the very first service that he gave me when I went to be with him in those final days was to just write down his ideas, his hopes, his plans for New York. Yes.
Maharaj, how regular can we expect you to come here?
I hope I can contribute. I am insignificant, but I think it's like you said. It's a great opportunity for us to be part of it. When I was thinking of joining the temple as a brahmachari, one devotee said something to me which humbled me and inspired me. I was kind of umming and ahhing about whether I should join or not. And then he sat me down and he said, this movement is going to spread all over the world whether you join it or not. And he said, but do you want to be part of the adventure? And I was like, sign me up. I want to be part of it. So I think it's like that, like was being mentioned, it's going to happen. New York is really going to blow up. I mean, in a nice way. Be careful about these things. Another Hare Krishna explosion, we hope. And it's amazing, I have to say, like just to speak now a little more personally, just traveling North America and especially being in New York, it's just incredible to see the talent, the ability, the scope that the devotees have here, the intelligence to spread Krishna consciousness. I can't think of places in the world which have more incredible devotees who can do amazing things. And like you said, I think it's just a matter of all of us coming together, all of us working together, and all of us coalescing in all that talent and ability and trying to do something beautiful for Srila Prabhupada. So yes, Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Adya piha shay lila kaha gaura roy. Kona kona bhagyavan deki bara boy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Kona kona bhagyavan, but who is that fortunate person that places themselves in that mercy flow? They're swept away in those transcendental events. So yeah, we all want to be part of it. Thank you for inviting me, for accepting me to be some small part of New York, whatever I can do. Happy to serve. And happy and excited to see how things go from strength to strength as we try and inundate this city where it all began with Srila Prabhupada's transcendental teachings. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to hand over to Chaitanya Nanda Prabhu, Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu. They're going to give